A little bit of consolidation here on Bitcoin as we continue to make our way down to our major zone of support at $67,000. It's still not a guarantee at all that we're actually going to get here, but if we do end up getting down here, I think this is still looking like a phenomenal zone of support for Bitcoin. It's nice to see that Bitcoin is consolidating kind of around the midpoint of this range. It shows us that even though Bitcoin has fallen down below a couple of its support levels, it shows us that Bitcoin is still actually maintaining its next support levels. So to me, that's a nice sign that things are going well. Bitcoin's dominance continuing to rise up as well. This is at such an astronomically high level. We're going to get back to this in just a minute for me to show you just how high this Bitcoin dominance level is now. But this is, I mean, and a lot of people are actually missing the significance of just how crazy this Bitcoin dominance reading is. So we're going to get to that as we go on in this YouTube video. And obviously we had the close with traditional finance, and so Monday is going to be very, very important. So we're going to be talking about that in this YouTube video as well. Now, as usual, if you're excited for all of that, do me a favor and smash up those likes, double check that you are subscribed, and also, of course, check out the beautiful links to free cash when you start trading using these links in the description, only if you're not in a restricted region. But let's come back to the chart here and talk a little bit about this consolidation, because I think that Bitcoin's looking pretty sweet right now. We've had another day of kind of just cooling off here after just brushing that all-time high. I welcome anything Bitcoin wants to do after reaching its all-time high. You know, this is the kind of time where we don't shout where we don't start shouting at Bitcoin just because, you know, it hasn't quite smashed the all-time high yet. It's been about 7-8 months of consolidation. We hit the all-time high. We're seeing a small rejection. There is really nothing untoward or bad or negative happening right now. There's nothing, that I would be concerned about at all. If we take a look at the Fear and Greed Index, I actually think that we're holding up pretty okay. Because the Fear and Greed Index hasn't really moved up since, look at this, 16th of October, we had a reading of 73, which is higher than today. And if we go back to the 16th of October and take a look at what that day looked like for price action, the 16th of October was right here, right? This was the 16th of October. And right now we have a higher reading on our Fear and Greed Index. And even at our highest point just a couple of days ago, we were only at 77. So the point is that, from this, very, how do I say, like, very clear sentiment number. I mean, whether you agree with it or not is a different thing, but it's one clear number. It's very objective. From this particular perspective, we're just not that extreme in terms of sentiment right now, which is what you would probably want to be seeing at this stage in the market. And I think, it's almost a little bit surprising because Bitcoin did get right up to its all-time high. So I would be expecting, even more kind of irrational exuberance or just euphoria. But we're clearly not quite there yet. So I think that, again, from that particular perspective, we're holding things pretty well. Again, really, the only things that aren't holding are going to be the altcoins, right? I mean, if we take a look at them, it's Ethereum here with another day of just absolutely abysmal performance. It slipped below the low that it punched in here very, very briefly. It obviously would have triggered another one of these kind of sell-offs here where we'd expect it to punch in a new slightly lower low. Now, we're not expecting it to set substantially lower lows each time, right? You take a look at the differences between each of these lows, and this was, only 0.6% lower, and this was 0.3% lower, and from here to here, it was 0.9% lower. Ethereum's not sticking in substantially lower lows every time it drops, but the problem is it's just going down by, 0.5 or 0.9%, constantly, across a year. In 365 days, this thing's punching in a new low on maybe 30 of those days, let's say. That's a lot, for this coin to be, punching in lows. And it's just it's a representation of the rest of the market, right? I mean, there are some kind of isolated coins which are actually doing really well, and we've been speaking about them quite a bit. Solana's obviously going to be one of the main ones, and Solana's continued to do really well. It's kind of slowly moving back down to support, making its way back down there. So we're going to take a look at that all in just a second. What I do want to do before we carry on with the Bitcoin analysis here and take a look at some indicators is actually just go through some tweets that I found really interesting. And we got Rect Capital right here showing us the historic monthly close for Bitcoin's dominance that we've gotten here. And this is kind of what we were talking about just a minute ago. This is such a big deal because the last time that Bitcoin's dominance kind of did something like where we are right now, breaking above this key level here, was, back in 2019. We did get the bounce above this level in 2020, but we didn't get a breakout above kind of 57.5% on this dominance chart since back in 2019. And again, if we take a look at that, dominance chart, it's very clear what picture it's painting for us right now. If we take a look at this on, let's say, the weekly, this is a chart which is just in such an aggressive bullish stance right now, and it clearly has not found its peak. I'm just absolutely fucking smacked down to the ground in shock that people were talking about this range with Bitcoin's dominance, telling me and you, because you were probably agreeing with me this whole time, telling both of us that this shit is momentum slowing down and Bitcoin's dominance is not going to be continuing to go up from here. And I know that it seems like they were only slightly incorrect because it kind of only moved up by this much since those idiots were talking about the dominance cooling off and starting to retrace. But this move for Bitcoin's dominance represents a 4 to 5 point gain, which in and of itself is huge. And more importantly, it represents just an absolute death sentence for all of the altcoins that are in this market. So there's still so much going on here that's so important and so interesting. And the great news that I have for you all in this YouTube video, ladies and gents, is that you're going to be getting very soon a multi-part series of altcoin analysis. It's going to be a playlist which you watch in order, where I'm going to start off by telling you what an altcoin needs to recover in a bull market, like what might be coming up next. But more importantly, I'm going to be telling you how I think those rule sets will apply to each individual major altcoin. We're going through a list of them. There's 5. We're going to do even more later on. And we are going to be evaluating each of those coins, excluding stable coins, excluding Bitcoin. We're going to be evaluating them against those rule sets to determine how likely it is that those coins are going to be going up again. It's a really important, very intellectual conversation we're going to be having about these coins, and you're going to miss it if you're not subscribed. So make sure that you've been smashing that subscribe and bell icon button so that you do get notified of this very time-sensitive content. And like I said, while you're down there, huge exchange bonuses here. If you want to trade on any of the exchanges that I use, they're going to give you very aggressive, very large and generous cash bonuses. And that's basically free money that you can trade with. And any profits that you make with that capital, you're going to be able to withdraw as well. So check it out if you're not from a restricted region. But if we move back to the market here, very, very big stuff. And I'm very, very excited for what's going to be happening in the altcoin market. So that's something I'm definitely keeping a very close eye on here. Now, if we do take a look back at Bitcoin here, what an ugly weekly candle here that we could be getting ready to print. We're going to have to keep an eye on this and kind of see how this goes, because this is quite an ugly candle. I'll be honest with you, but it's okay, and I don't think it's the end of the world. We got another day until this candle kind of closes fully, but yeah, probably it's going to stay roughly around the kind of same place that it is, and it does tell the story of quite a nasty rejection here happening on this week here at the end of October, beginning of November. But I don't think that this is super sad or upsetting, because even if this kind of candle is going to result in some sort of a kind of pullback, that pullback, that support zone's right here at about 67K. If it needs to go deeper, you got great support until 61, and I don't know why everybody's so scared of those kind of price levels. They're just not that, number one, they're not that far away, but number two, they're not, they're good levels. I think they're worth paying attention to. They're worth believing in a little bit. But all of that aside, it is true, and I think bears are really using this to their advantage here, that this is not a great weekly candle. We're just, look, it leaves a very, very clear invalidation, and I guess that is a very, very good silver lining here, that at least it's abundantly clear to everybody what we need to do in order to recover this market, and put simply, all we need to do is get above this wick. As long as we can get above this wick, we're good. And obviously that would mean, smashing the all-time high, setting a brand new all-time high. But I think that as long as that happens, Bitcoin's going to be in pretty good posture, pretty good standing. And that's going to be what kind of allows it to rally on higher and continue to set those all-time highs and stuff like that. Now, if we zoom in a little bit, take a couple of take a look at a couple of our indicators. We still haven't quite met support on the 4-hour Ichimoku cloud. So again, from these perspectives, I kind of, can't even start being bullish yet. I mean, you can tell I am already quite bullish, and I have been bullish for this entire market move. Sometimes I get a couple of people saying stuff like, Sammy's always kind of, bullish and saying the same thing. And it's like, well, motherfucker, if you zoom out, yeah, I mean, being bullish was kind of the right idea here. So it's so weird. Only in crypto, people will flame you for being correct and making money. Like, I literally... I don't, it's like, do you hear yourself? Like, I get people trying to insult me by saying that I'm consistent and that I'm correct about, what I'm saying in the market. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, only in crypto. Yeah, of course, being long and being bullish has been very profitable, throughout this market cycle. And I've been long this entire market cycle. No surprises at all. Fuck, it's 7 years in the game. If I couldn't pull that off, it'd be very upsetting. But of course, yeah, long throughout the entire market cycle, kind of because I have to be, right? I mean, the market's, been making sense that way. And I don't think that that's changing. So I still think we're going to keep on going up. I'm saying the same shit that I said to you back when we were down at $20,000. And that's just because nothing changed, right? I'm here to make money ultimately, right? And if nothing's changing, I'm not going to, start questioning it and trying to make my life difficult. I already know which direction it looks like it's going in, and it's clearly still trying to go in that direction. It's just taking a little bit of time, but that's okay because we're still going to get paid. We might have to wait a little bit, but we're still getting paid, ladies and gents, and that's what's most important here, obviously. So smashing that all-time high, I think, is going to be what's arguably kind of the most important thing to get this thing back on track. Obviously, that resistance at 71, 72K is also going to be important, so we got to break that level, but I don't think that's going to be a challenge. And then, yeah, again, as far as our indicators go, that daily Ichimoku cloud is catching up quick, and that daily EMA ribbon is getting very, very close. That daily EMA ribbon keeps moving up, and I think that over the next couple of days, especially if Bitcoin decides to take a quick little dip down, little deviation, liquidity grab, whatever you want to call it, maybe, drive out some of that open interest, whatever the deal may be, there is a lot of EMA support right down here at 67K. And it's now risen just above 68 or just at 68K. So this EMA is getting higher. And I think that this is definitely going to, it's got some real potential to provide some quite spectacular, quite powerful support to Bitcoin. So I'm definitely interested and seeing how that continues to move for Bitcoin here. And like I said, I think the star of this show is going to be traditional finance. So Monday, we're going to have to see what happens. It was a pretty bad end to the day. It was a pretty bad end to the week. It was a pretty rough week overall. If we take a look at the S&P 500, I can't say pretty rough at all, actually. It wasn't pretty rough. Pretty rough was, kind of, I guess what happened here. That was pretty rough. This is nothing. And this is kind of the problem, is that we're so sensitive to S&P 500 moves, and S&P 500 hasn't been moving particularly much. It's not actually been that volatile. So, this is quite a dilemma, because it looks like it could, it looks like it hasn't really had an aggressive drop for quite some time, which, begs the question, is it going to have an aggressive drop now? But the problem is, every time there's a small drop, Bitcoin shits itself and things start going bad. So, we really just have to see if this correction even continues. That's going to be the number one thing. Does this correction continue come Monday? And if the answer is yes, then, we're gonna have to brace ourselves for, some slightly lower Bitcoin levels. But I think, 67K is still a great support level, and I wouldn't really be worried about anything, in terms of Bitcoin losing that level. I mean, I think 65 can be an absolute low, in terms of the floor, but 67 is kind of, the support level that I'm confident in, that, that encompasses 66, and 65 is kind of that liquidity grab zone. So I'm very okay with that. That's where I entered my last long. So, I'm very bullish at that level. I'm willing to put money down at that level. So 60, 65 is kind of that bottom line. 67 is that main support area. And I think Bitcoin can get there if the S&P 500 opens bearish on Monday. And we're going to have to see how that continues to go, because it's like I'm saying here, small pullbacks are resulting in some blood for Bitcoin here. So if the S&P does produce a bigger pullback, which, eventually it's going to happen, and like I said, it's due, so it's like, well, I don't know if it's right now or not. But eventually it's going to happen, and if it does happen, I think, we're going to have to see a lot of strength from Bitcoin to, for it to hold its key levels. I think it's going to be fine either way. This isn't me trying to scare anybody or anything. I literally don't think it's that concerning at all. We just got to keep an eye on it. We just got to keep an eye on it and see how it is. By the way, let me know how you feel about this whole camera situation, and most importantly, one of the most important things is, do you have any lip sync lag? Is there any lag from my lips to from what you see versus what you hear? I did have that issue at the very beginning. We have been upgrading office equipment, but hopefully that issue has been solved. So we're gonna have to see what goes on here with the S&P 500, and if it's able to kind of hold itself, or if that does result in Bitcoin getting dragged down a little bit. And then the dollar, a largely uneventful week for the dollar, just kind of stuck here. So we still haven't seen a big move for the dollar. If it moves up for a nice big move up here, that's probably going to spell some trouble for Bitcoin, trouble for S&P 500. But if it starts moving down by quite a bit, then that could just absolutely release the floodgates and have things go crazy. And obviously the election's only a couple of days away. I keep forgetting, is it March 4 or November 4 or November 5? I think it's November 5. So, only about 3 days away from the time we're recording this video now. And, that could be what kind of unshackles, the traditional finance markets. It could be what really sets the S&P 500 off. It could be what really sets the dollar off, moving in any direction. Whether that direction's up or down, I don't know. But it could be what really, there's a lot of people really holding their breaths right now. This is quite a monumental election, especially, for in all directions, in all ways. But, I think also quite largely, in the markets. The markets are really quite clearly, recoiling and cringing a little bit at, what's going on, and very curious about kind of how things might look moving forward. So, I think we're going to see some sort of resolution on those things in the next couple of days as well. But with that, ladies and gents, I do really hope that you've enjoyed this video. You know what to do. If you have, hit up that like button, subscribe, tick the bell, do all that good stuff. Beautiful. Exchange is giving you tons of free cash when you start trading using these links. Check them out if you're allowed to, based on your country's local laws and regulations. But with that, ladies and gents, you know what to do, and I'll see you all in the next one.